Pride, a movement of the LGBTQIA plus community spawned from the uprising at Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in New York, has become a statement of dignity and worth. Originally, we had 2 people to speak at this point, but one, Dr. Toby Ray, contacted me this morning and said he was too sick to come. So I would like to introduce Rebecca Rod, a member of our congregation, who will speak a few words to you.
So I'm the main event here. I wrote a 5-minute little short story, but let me tell you a little bit about myself before I read that. As Fran said, I'm a member of this community. Teresa and I have been members since 1992. She and I met in 1991. We heard that there was going to be a new minister at the Unitarian Church here. Her name was Lynn Unger. And I had, growing up, never had a female minister. We heard that she loved music. That was exciting. And we heard she was a lesbian. And we were like, we need to go to that church. So we walked in here in 1992 and became members. And it was an awesome place for us to be part of and embraced and not questioned. And for me, having grown up gay back in Iowa, back in the day in the 50s and 60s when gay folks, and I'm using that as a generic term, were, demonized, and we had Anita Bryant trying to save our children for the country, and we had all kinds of pushback from religious folks. And my message back in the day was pretty much you could be, a murderer or a gay person, and probably being gay was worse. And so it was a tough time to grow up and kind of figure that out. I went to a Lutheran elementary school. I went to a Lutheran college. I fell in love a couple times in college with a couple women, and one relationship in particular was a struggle. It was a passionate, or a loving relationship, and then we were alternately loving each other and then praying that we would be normal. Don't let us do this again, sort of off and on. So it was painful, but you come through these things. You have discovered a community of folks down in Iowa City, and in 1975 moved down there to the liberal hotbed of Iowa City, and that made quite a difference in my life and our lives. And I'll just make the longer story a little shorter. Moved out to Idaho, lived here. I was a librarian at the University of Idaho. I was a librarian in Sandpoint, Idaho. And my last job, though, was I got in 2005. I was hired in the first Gay for Pay position in Idaho. And that was as the LGBT coordinator at the University of Idaho, where I set up all the programs for students, programs for faculty and staff, trying to make the atmosphere at the University of Idaho more accepting and open. And I did that job for about, I think it was 6 years, and heard a lot of stories from a lot of students about the struggles that even in the year 2000 that I had back in the 60s and 70s, of people not being able to come out to their parents, people struggling through studies and tests and the whole gamut of things, and also struggling with this identity thing. And it's just showed me how, even though we now, we had the internet and you could find things out about that I could never find out when I was younger, connections that could be made and things like that, that people still struggle with this. There's a lot of rural communities where folks grow up and, just are trying to struggle with these identity issues. And so we we keep at it and we keep adding. This is amazing how Pride has grown over the years just that I've been here. And it's become larger, more colorful, more full of activities and more people involved. And, it's just been great. And we just want to also remind people that the work isn't done yet, and please to continue to be out there with us and for us and shoulder to shoulder. So the story I wrote, I called it The Spiritual Side of Pride. But, it's just a little vignette from my life and my first encounter with pride. You know the old joke about lesbians, right? What do lesbians bring on a second date? A U-Haul. Because, we women, we just want to nest and get together. Well, back in 1980, way back before my almost 30 years with Teresa, my 1970s college sweetheart and I arrived in Idaho with our U-Haul in tow, literally. I was newly outfitted with my master's degree in library science and had landed a job as the director of the library up in Sandpoint. So we'd packed our belongings and headed west from Iowa for our new life in Idaho. What the Sandpoint Library Board did not know, though, was that I was gay. However, I had told them that a friend was moving to Idaho with me. A good friend who was a teacher and had decided that she also wanted a change of scenery from Iowa. And she decided that she'd like to make the trip with me and hoped to find a job out west too. So it was with excitement and a little trepidation that we began to unpack our U-Haul at the little house I'd arranged to rent from a library board member who lived right across the street. Our first items to come out of the truck were the last that we'd packed back in Iowa. Our matching Kawasaki 400 motorcycles. I was a little nervous. I was a little nervous, of course, because we were two lesbian professionals, a teacher and a librarian, well practiced in living our expected closeted lives, which had been, a little bit lost in living in the liberal Iowa City, but here we were in small town Sandpoint. So all our domestic efforts had been designed to be discreet. I'd rented a 2-bedroom house and we had furniture and beds and etc. for both, of course. And we'd already pretty much done that and practiced that and accomplished that pretty well for 7 years, passing ourselves off as best friends and roommates for the most part. We'd become accustomed over the years also to spending the important family holidays of our lives, Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, apart from each other for the sake of keeping our relationship secret to our families, particularly her family. And no one seemed to be questioning us too much about anything personal, the old don't ask, don't tell. So this is kind of the dark side of the U-Haul joke, right? The baggage that comes along with living the partially hidden life. The baggage that you feel you can never unpack, much less look at it. And yet it seems to grow. These are the suitcases of shame and grief. Shame is the bag that makes you feel separate from others. It holds the feelings that come when your inner desires and feelings of rightness come into conflict with the messages that you've absorbed from your circle of origin, your immediate family, your church, your social soup of surroundings that you grow up in. Shame makes you feel separate from the party of life. Grief is the bag that weighs you down before you know it. It fills up with the sorrows that you absorb and pack away when your loving being is not free for full expression. All the times you can't talk about who you love, like your song today. All the times you can't talk about who you love or who you might want to love, or spend holidays with, or hold hands in public, or just be acknowledged for the loving person that you are. The celebration of pride is designed to be an antidote for the toxicity of shame and grief. I saw my first Pride Parade in San Francisco in June of 1981 when I was there for a National Library Conference. What an eye-opener. The dykes on bikes leading the parade. The guys in feather boas and leather and chains. The group of gay fathers, old and young, together holding hands. The contingent of deaf gay people silently walking while signing "I love you" over and over again. It was a many blocks long array of colorful and silly and fun and raunchy beings, boldly and beautifully strutting their unabashed fullness of humanity all along the way. No one ashamed, no one grieving, not that day in that crowd. And for that day, for the first time, I was gifted with the powerful opportunity to drop my bags of shame and grief and raise my arms in colorful joy and celebration. This was my introduction to pride, to what life could be and what life would hold for me one day. So be it, and blessed be.